joining us right now to talk about right to carry in Wisconsin, the only other state in the union without any form of concealed carry laws on the books. Mr. Darren Lesort, NRA's Manager of Hunting Policy. Darren, how you doing tonight?
Cam, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for coming on the program. And yesterday, we had these two hearings in Wisconsin, one in Wausau, one in Madison. Were you able to attend one?
I was indeed. I was at the hearing in Madison, which was the Assembly Committee hearing. And, it went very well. We had a few hundred supporters there, which was great because
Awesome.
Even in today's very controversial Madison, they don't see crowds that big very often. And so legislators took note. And then the Wausau hearing was covered by Brent Gardner, one of our very good grassroots employees, and he was the one testifying for NRA there since we had split duty, and they had a couple of hundred people there. So we had hundreds of people come out for those hearings, and that's a very rare thing. It's a great thing, and it just shows that Wisconsinites have waited too long for this natural right to defend themselves and their families.
That's great news. And everybody went home, right? You guys aren't occupying the Capitol or anything, are you?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we did head back. I'm actually at a little memorial service for a Navy SEAL buddy of mine who was killed last year in action. So pretty neat when they're saying that we at the NRA do more for the country than they will ever have a chance to do, and that was just told to me 15 minutes ago. So
Wow.
when we hear that about what we do at NRA, it's from those guys in particular, it's particularly humbling. So
No
pretty
kidding.
neat stuff.
Well,
Pretty neat
listen,
stuff.
you give all of our best from the NRA news team to those men and women in uniform where you are tonight. So let's
I will
talk.
absolutely do that.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the hearing. I'm guessing in Madison, Darren, there not only were hundreds of supporters, but I'm guessing you guys probably did have a couple of opponents show up as well.
We did have some opponents show up for sure, and they weren't quite as radical as we assumed they might be.
Oh, they weren't.
No, they weren't quite as bad as we thought they were going to be. And but there were some things. What was interesting is we had some information from the last three iterations of this in Wisconsin. We had some information that the antis used to use a long time ago, and actually from the document this year, 6 years since we last did this in Wisconsin, that I took out of our information document that kind of refutes what they claimed, because I was thinking that there was no chance that the antis would use that particular argument. But of course, we heard that argument in committee hearing, and that was the old violence policy so-called study that said that Texas permit holders were somehow way more dangerous than the regular public. And anyway, they were making the same old tired arguments, and blood in the streets, fender benders turn into shootouts, and the people just can't be trusted. Even though we have the 48 states out there, no states ever tried to repeal its law, etc. We still heard the same old tired arguments, but what was interesting is that the legislators seemed to get it this time. One person came to testify about how some 13-year-old friend of hers was killed in a drive-by shooting, and it was very emotional testimony, very emotional, talking about, and ultimately one of the legislators who isn't necessarily for concealed carry asked, so what incident was it? And she talked about this drive-by shooting, and even he said, well, that really isn't related to this, because that probably wasn't a concealed carry permit holder in that state. And she said, well, it was somebody with a gun. So this emotionalism just sometimes takes over the logic of these people, obviously, and that was the case here. But even the anti-gun legislators in Wisconsin seem to be getting it now, which is nice.
Well, that's fantastic news, and it is interesting. I mean, that clearly then that is what they believe their best argument, and it hasn't changed in 25 years, despite all of the evidence to the contrary. That's still what they're hanging their hat on.
It is, and what's interesting now is that we have a very, very clean bill. We have the constitutional carry bill and we have the license bill, and the shall issue license bill is a very clean bill, one of the best in the country. And what's interesting is those same anti-gunners, those anti-self-defense advocates who used to be opposed to the bills in the past, now, because they know that we have the upper hand with the governor and the two bodies in the legislature, now they're almost advocating for that old bill that they used to oppose. They want to add more restrictions to our bill. And that's really going to be the battle. They're saying the same old claims, the same old stories, but since they know it's probably going to happen this time, they're trying to add very lengthy training requirements and fingerprinting requirements and prohibitions in churches and daycare centers and domestic violence shelters. That's really what we need to work on, and that's our members in Wisconsin need to make sure they contact their legislators, ask them to support the PPA, but also oppose any amendments that further restrict what is in the bill now.
All right. So after this hearing, Darren, what's the next step for the legislation?
Well, these were informational hearings, so we had hundreds of people testify in Wausau and Madison, and what they'll do now is schedule executive sessions for those committees, and that's where any amendments will be considered and where ultimately the two committees will take votes on the bills. And so we have constitutional carry in the Senate committee along with the shall issue license bill, and we have the shall issue license bill in the Assembly committee. So those committees will probably go into executive session, I'm guessing, sometime maybe late May, early June, and then ultimately the bills go to the floor for a vote. And, of course, that's going to be very lengthy and contentious debate, and more amendments will be offered. And I believe that the real fight is keeping the bill clean and pure and making sure we don't have amendments that further restrict what's available in the bill currently.
All right. Well, listen, Darren, thank you so much, sir, for coming on the program. We'll let you get back to your memorial service, but thank you again for joining us tonight. Talk to you again very soon.
Thank you, Cam. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Darren Lesort, NRA ILA's Manager of Hunting Policy, joining us here on Cam and Company.